Hello and welcome to another edition of the Brooklyn Baby Podcast with me, your host, Charlene Sapp. Happy Saturday, everyone. Happy Saturday. Hey, what y'all have planned today? What y'all doing? What are y'all doing? Well, it's a beautiful, hot day here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I think it's hot like all across the East Coast right now. We're like in a heat dome and boom, boom, boom. I did take a nice jog this morning. You know, I've been on the street taking morning or afternoon jogs, but mainly in the morning to avoid the excessive heat. Yes. My metabolism just said, honey. It just went at a halting, screeching stop, it seems, since like, I was going to say like July, August of last year. It's like, what in the world? When you hear those ads, when people say, you know, you're just exercising so much and you have to really do extreme measures, or let me not say extreme measures, but really got to really watch what you're eating and increase the exercise to lose a pound. I'm in that. I totally feel that. And that's what's going on. But anyway, today's topic is leaving a job. And this hits near and dear to me because that's what I did. I chose an early retirement, and it's a very personal decision, and you just got to make sure your coins are where they need to be, and that you're doing the right thing, and you know, whether when you early retire, whether you have a nest egg or not, but you should have something, you know, nest egg, or you just want to, you know, everyone has a different situation. Mine was just to retire early and try to live my best life, pursue passion projects, do traveling, even though I'm a little scared to travel too far lately. I'm just being honest, because you're hearing stories about people who can't get back in the border or get back from an international trip. There's issues, and they try to do stuff even with your passport. I'm like, what in the world? And it's just a real weird time to travel for me. It's just a personal, I just want to keep an eye on things. But, you know, to each his own, you know, but it just seems like just not the time right now, even though I'm still planning whatever, but I've kind of put stuff to a halt because it seems like the temperature is really weird right now. The climate, the environment, the universe is just weird. And my inclination, my instinct just tell me, Charlene, just stay put. Yeah, I have a family member leaving to go to Mexico in a few days, and, you know, I have to get passport things taken care of first, so I couldn't partake in that trip. And then, but even if they were where I needed it to be, I was like, you know what? Still, my instinct told me to sit this trip out anyway and then join my relatives and friends on the next international trip. Because my spirit just told me, you ever had your energy tell you to stay put? Don't go anywhere. Just boom, boom, boom. Well, that's where I'm at. So I think my whole issue with my passport, that probably was a blessing in disguise. Because like I said, if the issue had been taken care of sooner, you know, I just feel like my instinct still told me just to stay put. But, you know, you got to wait X amount of weeks just to get stuff taken care of. And I think it was a blessing in disguise. Anywho, y'all didn't listen to my podcast to talk about that. But yeah, it's a personal decision. For me, I just felt like my years as a teacher, you know, let's be clear, when you first start out, no one's really great. Especially, you know, when this is your first time, you're teaching a really high content area like language arts or math. It might take a few years to really know your craft. I'm just being honest. That was just me. It's like a learning curve. But I also feel that depending on who you are, some people get no grace and support, whereas other people get grace and support. And it could be different issues, which, you know, I just feel like in the beginning years, I don't feel I got the support that I needed. And a lot of people probably don't know what they're doing. When I look back, I said, what the hell was I doing? And it took, like, I think when I talked to other teachers who are really being honest, they've told me, which I can definitely agree, it took like the first 5 years to know what the hell I was really doing. Then after that, then I really understood the craft. And the sad part is, after understanding the craft, I really felt like I can just speak for my school system, Wake County Public Schools in North Carolina. Unless you are white, I'm just being honest, this has been my observation. I feel I mean, I'm not saying that things don't happen among white teachers as well, but I just feel there was a lack of support for black teachers. There's not a lot of us in Wake County Public Schools, first and foremost. And then another thing, I just feel that you don't get the support. You don't get the accolades. And that's just been my experience for the past 18 years. And I said, why, and I just feel like towards the end of my career, school before last, I started getting the recognition. I was that teacher that people wanted their children to be, whose class they wanted them to be in. And it was quite an honor in which I became that teacher. I was there at my last school, Wake Forest Middle School, for 11 years. And it was in my last final years there where I became that teacher where other staff members wanted their child to be in my class. So I felt I got my flowers in that way. However, I do feel, yes, there was certain lack of recognition that I felt that I was overlooked. However, my principal at the time, I felt made good on a lot because he did give me the opportunity to be department chair. And I was department chair until I chose to go to a year-round school, which, some of you who know me and know my situation, I should have just stayed at Wake Forest Middle. I should have not gone to Durant Road Middle School because it was a hell experience. I was only there for close to 2 years, and then me and two other people bounced. Me and the other 8th grade language arts teacher left. The woman who pushes into our rooms to co-teach both of our special ed English classes left, so the three of us left within a week and a half of each other. It was planned, we resigned in a timely fashion, whatever, but, and it was just, that school was just a revolving door. So my point in saying this to say, my reasons for leaving the teaching profession is because it hasn't been easy. Like a lot of people say, I'd like to go to workshops, but I felt like if you are a black teacher in my school system, workshops they're not fun for people like me. When I say people like me, not only am I African American, but I don't kiss ass. I'm not trying to hobnob, social climb. I'm not trying to assimilate. I'm just going to be my authentic black self. And what I mean authentic, I'm not going to sugarcoat. I'm not going to try to assimilate. I'm not trying to make friends. I'm not trying to be whitewashed. I'm not trying to just be something I'm not to appease the masses. So yes, for me, the teaching experience, I was often, I did, in each of the schools where I worked, I did find a few friends, in my years, and who I'm still in contact with. But for the most part, I felt like the people who got ahead were people who kissed ass, people who monitored, people who policed other people who were in with the principal or principals. And I just felt like this is my experience. My choice to leave the school system was basically, it seemed like every school I went to was bullshit every school. It's like, I just want to do my job, do it well, and go home. The children were never an issue with me. It was never the students. It was never the parents. And let me be clear, you do of it now and then, every few years or so, you do have a child or a parent or two who you just don't gel with, or they don't gel with you for whatever reason. Yeah, I'm not talking about those mitigating circumstances. But my big issue with this, as a teacher for 18 years, has always been other teachers and the administration. I've had situations where, some principals were just totally driven on data. And I know data is important, but I was always trying to give my kids a full education, because there's certain things, until Wake County adapted to the EL curriculum, in which pretty much it gives you each day what to teach the kids, there was really no guidance. Yeah, you were told there were certain anchor units, and this is what you can read, and it was like a free-for-all. But yet, I felt like I had to fend for myself for the first several years being a teacher. And then the EL curriculum gave us more guidance, but there were still things lacking with that curriculum because it didn't really prepare the kids for the test. You had to come out with your own tools. And it wasn't until like then SAS started monitoring, our growth index, whatever. And I'm proud to say I did it my way. And it wasn't until like after my first 5 or 6 years of teaching that I really got the craft. And I started noticing my test scores were always in the green. And I know there was one year in particular, I went into the blue, and my principal at Wake Forest Middle, when I stepped into that first year or beginning of the year meeting of staff, he publicly acknowledged that I was the only language arts teacher that particular year that had a blue. When I say blue, that means I had exceeded the growth of my children. And I thought that was quite a compliment, and I'm glad that he acknowledged that. And I was so proud of myself for that achievement. But I must say, I also have to give kudos. I had a very strong team. I think we team, but I had a good group of teachers also working with me in language arts. So anyway, my point is, my decision to leave was just like, I just felt like my career, with the exception of, my last several years at Wake Forest Middle, I started, he gave me the props. He elevated me to department chair. I thought that was the ultimate compliment. And every teacher who had children at the school wanted their child to be in my class. And I didn't start getting that accolade till like my last few years of being at that particular school, because I really had my craft down. But I just feel like still, with that being said, there were still certain assistant principals and in certain schools, certain principals who I just felt like it just was like a good old boys or good old girls club. That's just my take. So when I made a decision to leave, I was just tired of the games. I started seeing, okay, all these schools have shit going on within all of them. And like I said, my issue was never really the children. It was always the adults in the building, the teachers. And I'm going to tell you something. At my last school, there was a certain teacher, I swear she was just like policing me. Her room at one point was next door to mine. And I would have other people say, she would poke her head in my room. And I was about to check her. And then I got interrupted by a student who had a question. This is when we were doing like morning duty. And this woman would always peek her head in my room. She couldn't even hide the fact that she was policing me. And how am I supposed to want to be a team player and be around people like that when I felt I was being policed? It was a certain math teacher whose room was next door to me my first year at my last school, Durant Road Middle. And it was like, what the hell? It just felt like, I don't know what was going on at that school, but people who I talked to, who were there past and present, who were really being honest, were like, it was a certain vibe at that school. It was a certain omen, a certain bad negative energy. And it felt like it was some racism. It just felt it. You just felt it. And if you were a black person like me, who was a rarity, who didn't try to hobnob or try to, it's weird, you could feel like people don't really like you, but yet you're ostracized for not trying to want to play in the sandbox with them. So I'm like, how am I supposed to want to hang out with people who I'm feeling like a resentment towards me, a dislike for whatever reason? Maybe they heard something about me. Maybe, who knows? You never know who knows who. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to sit down and worry about it. But other people who look like me and other people who didn't try to assimilate felt the same vibe. So my point is, if your environment, you feel like you are being tolerated but not accepted and welcome, that's the time to leave an environment. I said, life is too short to be with people playing in my face. And, who needs that? With people, they're talking about you. You're not stupid. And then other people are feeling the same vibe that you're feeling. And all of y'all are feeling ostracized. And all of y'all leave or quit or choose not to come back. There's a problem. There's a problem. And I think a lot of us, every job has something. Every job has a situation. No job is perfect. But I guess the bottom line is you got to decide as a person what you can put up with and what you cannot. And what I'm trying to say is, at my last school, what me and a few other people felt, it was like intolerable. It was like you're swimming against the stream. You can't win for losing. It was fake love. It was like a cult. That's how it felt. And the few people who look like me who tried to suck up and tried to assimilate and try to be up under the powers that be, yeah, I guess they had certain, I don't even want to say privileges, but maybe certain, no, well, they thought they had certain perks, but a lot of those people are not even there now, too. I heard they lost their job because of budget cuts or reallotments or whatever the case may be. So all that trying to be up under people didn't serve them well either. But I just thank God and the powers that be that me and the people who I did rock with, we all were very perceptive, intuitive. We could see through the bullshit. We could see through the fakeness. And, we were like, we all said, goodbye. Some people I know who saw what I was seeing said, you know what, they retired early like I did. Or they just quit and found other jobs. Or they transferred to other schools. I guess my point is, like I said, every job has something, but nothing should ever occur at a job where you don't feel valued, you don't feel appreciated, you're feeling a bad omen every time you enter the building. And that can really be detrimental to your health, your mental well-being, your peace of mind, because we all go through something in life. As my mother would say, some people have a plate full of problems, some people have a platter, some people have the whole buffet. But at the same time, the older I've gotten, I realize I need as much peace and stability as possible, because life is life for everybody. And we're not put on this earth to have some job be our taskmaster or our slave master, or to be detrimental to our health and well-being. So if your job is not serving you and it's to the point like I felt and my friends who I'm telling you at my past school felt, where you can't take it, you're seeing the BS, you're seeing the discrepancies, you're seeing the lack of balance, your voice is not heard, but yet you're being, because I have great classroom management, I just felt like a lot of the problematic, as they would say, or the behavioral kids will come into my room, a new one come into my room, or this teacher can't handle a certain child. Okay, let's send them to Miss Sab's room. It's like, and that happened at just about every school I went to, because I had great classroom management. I felt like I was getting a lot of the behavioral kids. I was getting a lot of the kids who a lot of people couldn't teach or keep in their classroom. It was just felt like it gets draining after a while. So everyone, just in your current job, before you make a decision to leave anywhere, just make sure your bills are paid. If you quit abruptly or whatever, just make sure the bills are taken care of first and foremost. And if not, just put yourself in a position to make sure everything financial is taken care of. Because we don't need anyone to get evicted or their house go under foreclosure or no crap like that, or their cars repossessed. Just make sure the finance, and if the finances are handled, whatever, even if that means taking a job that maybe you don't see yourself doing, just to get that peace, do it. Because I've heard a lot of people, even other teachers, say, well, I left the school system and I'm working an hourly job. I've heard cases like that too. And if that person has their peace, because I know one particular teacher, she left to go work at a department store, and she was as happy as a clam in its shell and just living her best life with her husband. So everyone's situation is different. So you just decide what you can put up with, what you can't put up with, and just see what your options are. Your options might be like that coworker I told you about, who was happy working at a department store, or maybe working for Uber or Lyft. You just never know. A lot of people said, some of their best jobs are those easier jobs. When I say easier jobs without, that you don't take home papers to grade. You're not taking home work to do. You're just doing, a job that might not be the highest in salary, but it gives you peace of mind. and you're not taking home work, you're not taking home stress and taking it out on your family or your children, your husband, your wife, whatever. So you just do what works best for you, you know. And maybe you're gonna do like what I want to do. In addition to retiring early, I'm starting my own Brooklyn Baby hair care, skincare business, and selling merch. And I'm doing this podcast with you all. So you just decide, because you know what, life is too short to be in a box, to be unhappy, because we might be here today, gone tomorrow. You decide what makes you happy and just do it. Just do it. Find out what you like to do. And if you could start your own business, great. Because I'll tell you something else my dad always says: no one gets rich working for someone else. No one gets rich working for someone else. Sometimes when jobs or life or what have you make you unhappy and uncomfortable, it's because God, the higher power, is trying to tell you, you know what, you are meant to do something bigger and better. You might be should be doing something in which you could be your own boss. You're above this. You don't have to put up with this. So sometimes things happen to our discomfort, to our dismay, as a way of the universe, God, the powers that be, pushing us into a higher calling. And we need to tap into it and recognize and realize it and live our best lives. It's up to you. What you're going to do. Well, that's all for now. Thank you so much. Don't forget to hit that like, share, subscribe. And we are going to have, I know I'll be talking about these live tape episodes, but they're coming sooner than you think. Thank you so much for being here with me on this Saturday afternoon, or whatever day it is that you listen to this podcast. And thank you for your support. Until next time, be blessed, be well, be productive. Bye.